train?
Between 7 and 3 in the
Yes.
morning and 7
Nobody can take my
My
train.
brother did too.
I was up for 4 hours.
But I can take
running
theirs.
back and forth.
Why, Mr. Blumenfeld?
I had that
Working?
the first day working.
And I was also
I
running
did this
downstairs
because I
to
was
the
homework
downstairs
for this
laundry
blog.
machine.
Oh, good.
Come figure.
Liam?
Sorry.
Graham, do I need to separate?
No.
I was,
Yeah.
You weren't talking about that.
no, I wasn't, but I was listening to him speak, but I was trying to figure out what activation energy
Then
is.
you should tell him to be quiet when he's talking about not about that. You're allowed to collaborate, but you need to.
What is
I'm
activation?
gonna have
I don't
another
even know
task
what
for you based on that
activation
worksheet in a few minutes.
I don't know what activation
It will be
is.
time limited.
What is activation energy?
Oh, it's on your notes. The whole point of that is to make sure you can go to your notes and look things
I
up.
wasn't there that day.
Oh,
He was gone on Friday.
so that would be a good thing to get on that way.
Hey, Liam,
No,
what is activation energy?
I have no idea.
Also, it's on the board.
And it's kind of in the name.
Does it activate the energy?
Energy
Oh,
to start.
so close.
the reaction.
Liam. So close.
Is it deactivate the energy?
It's energy to start the activation.
Is it? Does
Start
it?
the
Oh,
reaction.
energy to start the reaction. I see.
Oh, there is that. Do you have notes from the last two classes?
Liam Baker, did you know I used to be allergic to milk?
Oh, so what I would do right now, sit next to someone who.
I became unlactose.
I used to like get sick from eating so much smart food
Help these two.
and ice
Sit in
cream
the
that I
middle
just
of-
kept doing it and doing it and doing
No,
it,
no,
and then I just
sit in-
didn't get sick anymore.
Because here's the sneaky part
Okay,
of why
Liam.
teachers want students to help other students. When you have to teach someone else something, okay, you've heard this all before. But you go in the middle, you guys separate.
That's an extending.
That would be an extension. Yeah. Helping others. Here, he's not listening. So I'm just gonna move him. And now you both can get the help.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Where did it go?
It's not produced. Don't stop talking. Explain, no.
The notes will go through all the definitions of that.
Feeding him because I was crying and we were trying to shut it down so he could so I
So,
kept crying. And I was going on for 2 hours. My mom was
get in
not.
on that. Do you have
So yeah.
bring them over so they can see them get them. You can also get them off the board, like they're right there.
I couldn't speak. I was like 6 months old.
How we doing?
I was like allergic to one of the proteins in it
Oh,
or something.
what's
I
the relative?
was allergic to hazelnuts, and in
what is
the
absolute?
doctor's office, they didn't have anything but Nutella with hazelnuts in it, so for my allergy test, I was given spoonfuls of Nutella.
So relative general and absolute.
I used to be allergic to milk.
Absolute means you don't.
Straight up milk.
Sucks to suck.
I was like 6 months old.
That was relative temperature.
Cow's milk or milk in general?
Milk.
Cow's milk.
Yeah.
But if
I
say-
don't know why. And I still don't know why.
Because mine won't be.
Useless little baby.
So the
I'm not
reason
allergic to it.
those are all relative
I can
is
now.
that for exothermic,
Yeah, I said useless little
the
baby.
energy has to be
Well, my
less
dad kept
than-
feeding me milk because I thought it was sad.
It has nothing to do with what it has to do with.
No.
We don't actually put it in.
I was like 6 months old. I like cried. I had to figure out why. So he was feeding me milk.
So it's relative.
I was allergic to milk and I didn't know.
So he cried more.
And we're just looking at the size of the
Hospital and then she came over with my dad's freaking
That
out.
little.
Freaking out. No, he was actually deep.
Imagine.
Yeah, so the relative is
I've also crawled.
so is that an exothermic?
I've also crawled upstairs.
And the relative is that a bench?
butcher.
Arnie, could I get some
Good.
eggs?
Oh, you're
And I
catching
don't
up.
know where the
Excellent.
knife went.
How are we doing?
I think I did. So exothermic.
Are we good? Any questions? Good.
So, for example,
Okay. I would recommend doing them in
if you look at that,
pencil in case you get something wrong.
I forgot
Wow.
my
Why wouldn't you do this in
You
pencil?
might have
pencil at home.
draw and label
You have to label. You can use the same labels as in question 2.
This is
So this is for bonds, right?
in the beginning.
What?
This is
Yeah, yeah,
activation energy.
like act of left.
Yeah, good. So, endo, good, yeah.
I was curious. I'm Italian. I am actually Italian. But cellular respiration produces ATP. Photosynthesis is basically the same thing, but it uses sunlight.
Reverse, yeah.
And so what it wants is carbon to build the tree.
Yeah.
So it's not producing energy, it's using the energy of the sun.
It is producing energy in the sense that, because it produces two types of things. I'm going to extend you into biology 12. So, it, glucose, right? Plus goes to, hold it, that's CO2 plus water, I'm doing this backwards. And plus ATP, we now know, or energy, so we get the energy out. But, if we do the opposite, CO2 plus O2, we can get glucose. So we went from low energy to high energy. And then, this is a structure you can use. So you can take that, so they'll take that, and they'll do this with it. These are very simple drawings, glucose, not
Comparing reactions.
super accurate, but they give you an overall picture. That, or, that way? No, I think it's, just to say it's that way. Because the part is the same. Okay. This
No.
is starch. And that is a form of energy storage. Because if you break those bonds, and you can just feed it into mitochondria and get energy out. And plants also have mitochondria. So they store their high energy molecules of that and make ATP when they want it. So this is a form of long-term energy storage. And humans come along, and rather than letting the potato
Or no,
we
A-N.
eat the potato. And then we get it.
Anders.
Yes, absolutely. And the rule is you don't even have to ask. As long as your phone's in, you can just go.
R.
You just can't take longer than like 1 hour.
And then it gives oxygen, just 1 minute less.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because this is this plus O2. Now this, notice, this is glucose, and all of them are the bonds. These bonds alternate. This is cellulose.
Compare and
And you
contrast.
can't
I think
digest
they're
it.
making
That makes up things like
You put your
gluten and
face
cell walls and everything. Humans can't digest it, which means it's still sugar,
It's just
but we just can't digest it. So literally, like everything's made of sugar. It's stubborn, get at it. Stubborn sugar is a good way to put it. Yeah. I always find that really cool, is that I never realized until I did biochemistry. Starch and sugar and fiber are all the same thing. Yeah. But it's just that little twist of a bond makes a huge difference. Now, this is at one point in our history, the whole world was on fire. Because before something evolved the ability, this was basically plastic, nothing could heat it. So old wood would just accumulate. Now, some of it would get buried and then would eventually turn into coal. That's why we're probably not going to make coal again, because we don't get that accumulation of stuff. In the same kind of way, or oil, because it used to just accumulate. If it got buried, it could turn into coal or oil. But so all this underbrush essentially is just building and building and building. And then at one point there was a fire, and when there's an ash layer, the world basically burned. We we would have those because there's so much tinder around. It just takes a dry spell and then all of a sudden the cotton's on fire. And then a fungi developed the ability to eat the sugar. And then after that, everything and now it's free food basically. And so now that's why part of the eating. Now I don't know, like there's some bacteria that can, the cows have it. The lignin itself is only fungi. The cellulose is a few things. Mammals can't, that's why cows have bacteria. So I don't know which ones can do which. The lignin was a huge problem until fungi could do that.
Because earthworms are causing the extinction of Ontario's forests because how the trees will grow is they have like meters and meters of leaves that in the winter the little baby trees will hide under, but then the earthworms
I love that one. That's my
eat
favorite
all the
section.
leaves, and now the baby trees are
Oh,
eating that,
yeah.
and now the forest is
Yeah, that's terrible. Now, when I said this whole process, something involved in eating, it was like plastic, right? You might think that would be good. If something involves eating plastic wins, not a problem. Also, however, at that point, we're going to have to douse our stuff with antibiotics or something. Because we rely on them, absolutely rely on all our machines with plastic, that's okay. As soon as something involves the ability to eat it is essentially free food. At that point, our food is going to get slimy or break down or do something. Because now stuff we eat it and it's going to rot. And now all our stuff is going to break.
I was like, wait, styrofoam can digest styrofoam.
Oh, was there? So it started.
It started.
Started.
It was actually giant plants where they like just keep feeding them in like warm environments
It's a
and
good
energy
song. I
and
love that song. That's like that's really the only MPE song I listen
like the
to.
dead birds and compost. So
Oh, really?
it's turning stuff.
Now, before I go on, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. How many people are done?
Like all of this?
All of it.
No.
Okay. You just have another couple minutes.
To finish?
Yeah, and then you're gonna have an assignment based on it right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm locked in.
Walk in, start cooking.
Gotcha.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No fire.
What?
That's not what that means.
You can't cook in the classroom. You can't start a fire.
You can't start. I didn't start the fire.
Nothing?
The world was burning.
Nothing. Okay, how do we, did you do number 4 yet? How?
I don't know.
Okay, compare and contrast endothermic terms. Label these on your diagram. So energy absorbed is, and energy released is exo.
Yeah.
How can you tell if you have internal bleeding?
You can't. Sometimes they're called walking before
The
this.
relative energy
Because
the reactants.
sometimes there's absolutely no symptoms. And so
Direction
someone
the
comes
energy
in,
flow in
not,
the system.
someone comes in with a friend, it's just in a horrible accident. The friend is like
Energy.
massive injuries and everybody starts running. And while the other friend is watching, like, oh my god, oh my god. And
Energy.
all of a sudden they just like keel over.
Low.
Nobody's paying attention.
That.
And they're bleeding out from the inside. They were actually more badly.
Relative energy among
So they
reactants.
do a lot of work when someone come in, they should be right away and do like
Real life examples. Give one real life example of an exothermic reaction.
ultrasound. Because you can see the massive bleeds. So they'll try to do that quickly. They'll try to do that. There are some symptoms, like you might get a little bit of a fever, you might be uncomfortable in some areas, you might get hard to breathe if it's pressed.
What about endo?
But the symptoms are subtle sometimes.
Racking and ice.
It is something to worry about. And we worry about concussions. I mean, I don't know. I really like rugby.
Explain the
I didn't
role
like
of
it when I
active
came because I was forced to play. I hated it. And
This really is
they gave me that hatred because they forced me to play. But as a house parent, I've seen, I love rugby because it has, you can have any type of person and there's a spot for them on the team. You need big people that are slow to hit, but they kind of all have to be fast, but not fast. And you need small, fast people. Like you need every type of person, and there's a spot for them on the team.
5 days.
But hand injuries are bad, like really bad. Like it's hard to understate how bad they are.
Why is it necessary for
The longer I
Relative
play
and
rugby,
repetitive
the
narratives.
less my head was
Manifest.
And usually, how, like, my head doesn't
trades.
Last game, I got out of the game, and my
Yeah.
head kept completely fine. Like,
I don't
nothing
play
at all.
anymore.
it's all
I
right.
play this.
That's good.
I just don't listen to
Oh.
how to play this.
Okay.
Someone who's better.
If I can get your attention.
We
I hear a lot of chatter, so I'm thinking most of you have done enough to figure out what's going on in the worksheet. The rest of it will be for homework. Do, let's say, 4 minutes per question. Right now, as I want you to write 3 questions. You also have to provide the answer. Do it on a separate sheet and then submit it. 3 questions, 2 multiple choice, 1 long answer on the topic from that worksheet. On reactions, the diagram. If you want to go grab a diagram to use off the internet somewhere, you can do that. It is due, what time is it now? 10:55, 12 minutes from now. It is due at 11,
yeah, 59 p.m.
stop that.
Please.
Okay, now 4 minus 12 plus 8, 11:08
No.
a.m.
Why?
Excellent.
Why are you doing this?
Go.
Okay, 1 medium.
3 questions. Your questions have to be different than another person's questions.
What if they are my
I really
quiz
love
notes?
missing days.
Where do we find the questions?
No, you have to make
Creative
them up.
questions.
Oh.
Yeah, I want
Wait,
you to
wait,
make
I
them
don't
up.
have it anymore.
Are they on paper or online?
You are doing them
I
online
think it
on like a Google Sheet and submitting it.
Oh, we're just doing it. on
Google Doc?
Yeah. Google Doc. And while you're doing that, I should do attendance.
Wait, what were the 3 types of questions?
2 multiple choice, 1 long answer. It's also on the Google Classroom.
And then we have to answer our questions.
You have to answer your own question. If you cannot ask a question you yourself can't figure out the answer to.
Yeah, but if we ask the question, do we have to provide it right away? The
Yeah.
answer?
Yeah, I want the answer either
In
below or
the
bolded or whatever
It
you.
can be anything in the sheet. It's about anything.
It has to be about reactions, testing the same knowledge that I was just having you review in the worksheet.
Holy hell.
Is that like exothermic and stuff? Just like
Exothermic, endothermic, drawing the
so
diagrams,
you could do
activation
like
energy.
endothermic means and then like a multiple
Sure.
choice?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 2 multiple choice. The reason being, of course, we're not gonna do a quiz this week. I'd like you to give you a little something though, and I might make a quiz, but I did get sick. So I didn't make the thing I wanted to make. So like, I'm making you do my work, and it's educational. Oh, yes. Aiden's not here. Ernie?
Yeah.
And Bowen?
Hello.
And Graham?
Yeah.
And Grayson?
Yeah.
And Jamie?
Yeah.
Layla?
Yeah.
Liam?
Here.
Mari?
Yeah.
Matthew? Miyabi? Nick?
Yeah.
Noah?
Yeah.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Rose? Violet? Fiona?
Yeah.
Does anyone know where Aiden is?
Yeah, Robbie.
See, rugby. Oh, Steve Bob.
He's not.
Oh, how many of you did not finish the lab? Okay, I have arranged with Ms. Stewart that if you would like to come in tomorrow at lunch, Wednesday at lunch, I will arrange to be there, and you can continue the lab at that time. So tomorrow at lunch, do the lab. What?
That's
That's not right.
Why is there a bell now?
Yes, class is over.
Pass
Stop
it
that.
over.
Yeah, class is over.
Let's set up.
Thanks,
Love
dude.
it.
Thank you.
Everybody starts packing up. No, class is not over. That's the bell to indicate you should be working on your assignment.
Oh, Teague's on duty today.
Yeah. And Jay. We're over at about 11:45.
Wait, how many multiple choice and how many?
2 multiple choice, 1 long answer. many will be not done in 5 minutes? Two people? Hmm? Two multiple choice, one long answer.
By the long answer.
One long answer.
When we're done, do we just turn it in?
Just turn it in. That way I can see how many are done. You've got 2 turned in. 3 turned in. It's exciting. How many people need like a few more minutes? Instead of 8, 11, I'll make it 8, 12, let's go 13. 7. Hold on, why is it so- oh, right, okay.
I hope I understood the assignment.
Me too.
It's just 2 multiple choice questions and one
One
long
long
answer.
answer, yeah.
And then you answer them.
Is this all on we're doing on the computer?
That is all you're doing on the computer. Once you're done, you can put your computer away. You can continue working on your worksheet if you're not quite done that.
Did we get our test back?
No. You should, on that, just while you're finishing up, I'm going to give you your test back next day. The reason I don't have it back is I'm working on a more detailed feedback than I normally give. Given the proficiency scale and everything else, I find I spend a lot of time giving feedback in a way that isn't read, and I'm hoping that what I'm going to give you will be more useful than in the past.
Does this mean you did really badly?
No. It means I'm coming up with a system by which I can give you that.
What is the class average?
Oh, I don't know. Class averages aren't useful. I mean, I understand why you want to know it, but
am I smarter than everyone?
Yeah, but in a class this size, they might put all three classes together. That's not a bad information. But the reason they're not useful is like, let's say you get 80%. Everybody else gets 95. Now you feel bad. Well, it just could be that you're in a class that have a lot of really, quick people in it that, work, just are doing better. If you get 80% and everybody else got 65, and you're not feeling really good, that's the opposite. But in both cases, the marks are the same. If you have a small class, you can easily have a class that their average isn't like the average. Do you know what the average mark in the province of British Columbia is supposed to be? 67%.
It's average mark.
Is supposed to be. So when they used to have like provincial exams in grade 10, they would benchmark it so that the average British Columbian child should get C+. That was considered the average.
Is it still like that?
No, they don't have provincial exams anymore. But that's roughly what they figured. Like, not everybody's as good in every subject, and if you just took a huge number of people, you would expect most people to pass and get about a C+.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Deeply upset at this.
In university, where they have classes of 100, or 200 in some cases, 250 I think is the largest one I heard about last year, they mark on a curve. So then it doesn't matter what your mark is on a test. What that means is, when you look at an average, are we still waiting for? Yeah, there's 2 more minutes, so if you're still writing, ignore me. But just to talk about university for a little bit, is that if you took, what I have just said is that the provincial government took the normal curve, and what they said is 67% should be the majority, and there you have your A's. Here's this is a C+, B, A, and then you have a C-, and then you have your F. They said that should be the average. But statistically, I could write a really hard test, harder than you've ever seen before, on this topic. Like, it wouldn't be a test that theoretically you couldn't do, but you'd have to make a lot of inferences to do it. And the class average would still look like this. But that mark might be 28%. That just tells me my test is too hard, right? If I have enough people, I could make that. So at a university, in large classes, what the professor does is they have, a certain number of A's in their pocket, a certain number of B's, a certain number of C++, a certain number of F's. And whoever you are here, if you have 35%, you have an A. I had a boy come back from university. I said, how are you doing in chemistry? Because I taught him chemistry 12. He was like, great, I've got 42%. And I'm like, ew. Like, that doesn't sound good. He says, you don't understand. The highest mark in the class is 46. I've got a low A. I'm like, oh, okay. So the professor then doesn't care about the percents. All he cares is the curve. If you have enough people, you can do that.
It's also slightly evil.
Yeah, so, but it also means in a class, there is only a certain number of A's. If everybody gets 92%, like in that range, like the opposite is true. If this is 92%, then here at 80%, you're failing. That's the F mark. And then up here, you have to be getting 98 or something, or 99 to get an A.
What if everyone gets the same mark?
Yeah. There is a professor at the University of Ottawa, I think it was. The students very carefully, he's a statistics professor, so this is where they go to town. They very carefully read his rubric for tests, and they realized that if everybody got the exact same mark, they would all get an A. So they went around and they all made an agreement that all of them would write nothing on the test. So they would all get 0%, and then they'd all get an A. They made the news because they bragged about it, and he agreed. He gave them all an A, and then rewrote his rubric in the future so that if any other class did that, they would not get an A. He would fail them all.
But if you are a statistics teacher.
But as a statistics professor, he went, no, they carefully read the rubric, and they figured out a way to bypass it. I'm going to honor it. So he gave them all an A. But just imagine being in that class. It's a large class. There was like 80 people in it. If one person wrote one answer that was correct, then they would have gotten an A and everybody else would have failed. Like, you had to trust everybody. Yeah. There was a student who came back from the UK, And I'm like, you can get into medical school, it's a lot more expensive, but you can get your medical degree a little quicker if you do it through the UK, because you don't have to do the pre-degree first. So they're doing the medical degree there. They missed a class, they needed notes. And they asked a person that they sat near quite a lot, they didn't really know them well, but they chatted, and it was like, hey, I missed last day's notes, can I borrow yours to catch up? And they were like, sure. And they said, in fact, I've already made copies, because people want these, here you go. And they just gave them a copy of the notes. And they're like, great. And then later that week, when the quiz coming up, they're studying the notes, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. And they're looking at their textbook, and they're looking at the notes, and like, it doesn't make sense. And they finally figured out that the notes were wrong. Like they were, but not wrong in a way that was like, oh, they made a mistake. They were deliberately wrong, as in they wrote them to confuse the person who read them, because that class was marked like this. So the worse other people did, the better that person's mark would be. Which was a level of Machiavellian stuff that I had never before heard about. By the way, that's incredibly rare. I've only heard about that in one case. If you're in university, as I was and many other students are, and you think you're failing, you're not doing well, oh my God, I can't handle this class. You've been to Brentwood, you know how to do things, you've lived a little bit on your own. Even if you're a day student, you've had to come here and be self-reliant. Make a little page and say, study group, meeting on this day and this time, this hour, post it right outside your class, and you'll be surprised how many people show up, and they're all now your new best friends, who also are feeling exactly the same as you, and now you have a group that you can study the class with and you'll pass. The most common way to pass university is to have and get those friends, because everybody's scared in first year that they're the only one who doesn't understand. Nobody understands. Okay, we're now past that time. I've talked through it. Has everybody submitted?
Science.
I am going to, if you haven't, I would say just finish off what you have and put what questions you have in quick. We're going to start a new note section. We're going to start types of bonding, types of compounds, and naming especially. Because nomenclature is the funnest part.
Honest is not a word.
Nomenclature.
It's nomenclature.
It's the only people who say that.
It's
I bet
more
you don't
fun,
even use
Mr. Neufeld, not
quinoa.
funnest.
It's quinoa.
Quinoa.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm actually kind of.
I'm gonna be fine with my
It's
jalapenos
like the
and
channel
tortillas.
balls on
Oh,
YouTube.
don't say that again.
I'm kind of
say?
impressed that I
He
can
said
understand
jalapenos, and cat and
His
queso.
nomenclature is actually
I love my
jalapeno.
jalapenos and
Tortillas.
quesadillas.
I love
I
that
used
word.
Okay, put away your laptop.
quesadillas, Boston.
Good.
Dude, I love
Ask
my
the Boston
jalapenos.
pizza for bring out his fish quesadillas.
I love my jalapenos.
Oh, because I just saw the papers.
Wrong.
on it. Oh,
Have you ever had a Carolina Reaper?
Wrong.
I'm also modeling
Wrong.
wrong. So.
Liam, have you ever had a Carolina Reaper?
Well, that's the fever.
They're so much fun.
No, they're not.
Okay. Oh,
Sound-
that one.
Dude,
Oops.
you ever had a
What?
Carolina
Okay.
Reaper?
Look. Hey,
One
yummy
second.
pen.
I'm gonna need that later.
What's going on?
Science is real.
That's real.
Oh.
I can't believe
So
we-
sodium chloride, you complete no.
Oh.
That's
Leave
so
Baker,
bad.
if you say that to someone,
Okay. Laptops away.
I'll give you $5.
Your attention.
You're so
Adam, laptops away. Quiet. What are you doing? Put away your,
It just
is
said
that your
on one of
math?
the
Put away your
pages.
math.
No, reaction.
Can you show
Oh,
the sodium
submit it.
chloride thing
Over there.
again? Graham wants
Liam.
to see it.
I've asked for everybody's attention. I don't do land acknowledgements every single class. I find if you do them every single class, it becomes like, you know, when you say a prayer before every meal and you don't pay any attention to the words. But I would like to acknowledge that we are, in fact, on land. I always liked that little video I saw where they did that before a play, and then they were like, oh, so should we go now? Well, yeah, in a way. I have done some learning, but I know that the learning that I would do wouldn't be equal to getting it from an Indigenous person in there. One of the things I always keep in mind is nothing about us without us. So you shouldn't present Indigenous knowledge without having it gone through an Indigenous person. I've done a lot of reading on things like two-eyed seeing, which I really value in areas like critical thinking, the ability to see through different lenses, However, I've explained it to other people who are more knowledgeable, and they look at me with a raised eyebrow and go, "You should probably talk to someone before you like expand on that." But one of the things I really value about it, especially, is the idea that it's tied to a place. You've lived there a long time. You know the land, you know the area, and a lot of things in order to ground yourself is knowing about where you live and what everything is on. And so I'm hoping to do a lab in the future where we will tie that into it, do something about this area and see what chemistry or biology or physics that we can do. In here, as we express our gratitude for being able to be here. So I don't put these up very often, but I want to do so every once in a while as meaningful. Also, I find a proper, having listened to a few that were, I would gather were proper ones, they often start out with an expression of where did you come from to be in this land. So in terms of my background, my family fled here after the Russian Revolution. The last name is Neufeld, but they fled Germany first and settled in Russia. They fled Germany because they were Protestants. There was particularly a type of Protestant called Mennonite, and the Catholics really didn't like them, and so the Protestant-Catholic wars, I gather, apparently they're over now, and they fled to Russia. They set up farms. Being a land-owning, farming person was particularly bad during the Russian Revolution. Why?
Because communism.
Because what? No, not famine.
Communism.
Communism. You're not allowed to own the land. The state owns the land. You're not allowed to extract the value of someone else's labor to work your land, was the original idea. But then it turned into the state mostly taking everything. So my family fled Russia. My grandparents as children did. And at the time, Canada had a very strict policy of no immigration. They felt they had too much and they weren't going to allow anybody in, but they made an exception for all the Mennonites. Why would they make an exception?
Because they were skilled farmers.
They were skilled farmers.
They wanted them.
And Canada was a rural population that didn't actually have that many farmers, and we had a lot of farming land. And so they settled. If you look up and down Vancouver Island, you will notice a lot of farms have very narrow areas on the roadway because the old method of taxation, particularly in Germany, that they were used to, involved the amount of frontage you had on the road. And so the longer your farm, the less tax you had to pay and the more land you had. There was two reasons. One, they were good farmers, and they were white. I have to acknowledge, given we're doing a land acknowledgement, racism has played a significant part of Canadians' past, and so that probably helped. Although at the same time, it was just after, just before World War II, and being a German-speaking Canadian in Canada while World War II was going on, it was apparently not the nicest thing to be. My uncles have stories of going to school and speaking German, and the Canadians at the time weren't very nice. However, it makes some sense in terms of the political movement. So that's where my family came from, immigrated into here. And then they settled on the Lower Mainland. If you go into Abbotsford, that's why there's so many darn churches there, because all those people settled in that area and up and down this island. My family came over here, and I grew up on a dairy farm, because my family were farmers, and that's all they really did for a long time. And then I became a teacher, because I don't know if you know this, but farming, there's a lot of really hard work. And I found that annoying. And I thought, if I'm going to do a lot of really hard work, I'd like to do it mostly indoors, and I'd like to blow things up. So growing up on a farm, I had access to gasoline, diesel fuel, liquid nitrogen, nitrogen-based fertilizers so I could make bombs, sulfur from the train tracks, potassium nitrate so I could make gunpowder. I nearly blew up my friend's bedroom. We did it together because we made nitroglycerin by stealing chemicals from the lab, which is why I'm always really careful about things like locking the doors to the lab and locking the fume hoods, because I know how I got in there to get the chemicals I wanted. And all I really did is the most dangerous lesson they ever taught me was grade 10, because grade 10 they taught me what an exothermic reaction was. So I just skipped to all the exothermic reactions I could find and figured out which ones I could make and started making them. We made nitroglycerin, but we grew up in 80s action movies, so we thought we'd get a plastic explosive. Nitroglycerin is a liquid, and we made a clear liquid. So we thought we failed, and we took the Winnie the Pooh cereal bowl that we had made it in and put it aside because we thought we completely failed. Put it on the side, and we're like, we'll have to try making plastic explosive again in the future. We started playing with flaming saltpeter. Saltpeter is actually just a nitrate that you use to make gunpowder, but if you light it on its own rather than blowing up, it just sort of crackles and pops. It's kind of fun, a little dangerous. And then a piece of it came out and landed in the Winnie the Pooh cereal bowl. And I then heard the loudest sound I've ever heard in my entire life. Instantly, his room was on fire in a circle around the Winnie the Pooh cereal bowl because it had exploded sideways. It missed us. Every piece missed us, myself and my friend Chris. The window cracked on his window. A piece blew out in the lower corner, and his room was on fire, and a ton of smoke. Luckily, his dad was a logger and apparently had a job where he was in charge of safety, so he just so happened to have a ton of CO2 fire extinguishers. So the first way I should have died is I should have died in the explosion. We didn't. And the second way I should have died was the CO2 fire extinguishers. Because what's the problem with CO2 fire extinguishers in a small enclosed space? Can't breathe. We put out the fire of the CO2 fire extinguisher, but then it relit. And when I showed you the gummy bear reaction, I showed how it provided oxygen. A similar process was going on. So it still had oxygen from the actual reaction. And so it was relighting. So we used up like 8 or 9 fire extinguishers. We filled that room with CO2. I don't know how we didn't. There must have been just enough air coming in so we didn't fall unconscious. And after we did that, we just went to town and bought new posters and covered up all the burn marks. And then his parents never found out because they were away.
With the cracked window.
Yeah, and then, well, it's, rural farm, eventually, I don't know how, lawnmower, kicked a rock. I don't really know. When in doubt, claim ignorance. And so that's how I got into chemistry. And then I went into UVic and did a co-op program. I've mentioned before, I think, I haven't mentioned this. I liked chemistry at that time, and always an area, but I really got into physics. I was in honors physics, and I took chemistry, but guess my grade in chemistry 12?
53.
Close, 51%. I just passed. And if you're like, oh my God, Mr. Neufeld's teaching me chemistry, he only got 51% chemistry. I have a whole degree in chemistry. I have a double major in chemistry and biochemistry. But I really liked physics. So I went to physics. Physics teachers were my favorite teachers. And then when I got to university, I noticed that all the people in the class, I was nerdy, I played D&D, I knew what anime was in the 80s, which is hard to do, because back then it wasn't anywhere, you'd have a bootleg tapes. I was nerdy, but when I went to university and found the honors physics people, they were so nerdy they didn't take baths. They smelled as a group. Maybe not all of them, but the majority of them. They were so beyond, they just, as far as I could tell, did math all day and nothing else. And so I thought, these are not my people. I do not want to be in this environment for the rest of my life. So I switched majors to computer science. And at the time, it turns out those were the same people. People who want to just sit down and code all day are the same people who want to sit down and do physics problems all day. So these are also not my people. But I love coding, but I'm not going to do that. So I had to think, what did I enjoy doing? Well, I always liked chemistry. I just never did the homework in grade 12. That 51% was just for me going by my gut. So what if I just switched into chem? I switched into chem, got in a co-op program, so I did jobs in chemistry while I was learning chemistry every 4 months. So I've had a variety of chemistry jobs over my lifetime. And while I was doing those jobs, I realized I love chemistry. I hated doing the chemistry in a mining thing, because you do the same thing all day long. And Canada isn't a country. It's a bunch of resource companies dressed up as a country in a giant coat. And so I realized if I was going to stay in Canada, I would have to do chemistry I didn't really like doing. But since I really like chemistry, I thought, now I could go into teaching, because I remember liking blowing stuff up and teaching and chemistry, so why did I do that? So then I got my teaching degree after I got my chemistry. I also really loved biology. I didn't even know I liked it until I got into university and did a course for fun, and it had some labs. And so that's how I ended up getting chemistry, biochemistry, double major, which is apparently the most difficult type of undergraduate degree to get, because both of those are required. A really in-depth area of chemistry is really difficult, and then adding on the biochemistry and microbiome is difficult too. So that's how I ended up here. That's my background in terms of acknowledging where I came from, and that makes the entire acknowledgement and gratefulness, hopefully, somewhat complete and somewhat more traditional. Hand up was in right in the middle. You had a question about what?
No, Did you grow up here on the island?
I grew up mid-island in a place called Black Creek. It's between Courtney and Campbell River. It's very rural, or it was at the time. A bit less so now, but yeah, middle of nowhere on a dairy farm.
How did you like get into UVic with like 51?
Oh, I wasn't going into chemistry, so I didn't use it as one of my entries. I had like 96 in honors
And your
physics.
physics grade was good.
No, I'm a physics grade. But here's the secret. Once you're in university, get good grades in whatever you're in, you can switch to whatever you want, right? So if you didn't do something in high school and you get into university and you don't want to do it, there will be a path by which you can switch departments, majors, anything. You might have to retake courses, but yeah. So getting in is only the first step. After that, it's a lot easier. And if you're like, oh, I really want to go to UBC, but I can't go to UBC because they won't accept me, North Island College. Little tiny college, you get your first year done, and then you transfer in. Once you can transfer in with grades, they don't care. On average, 50% of people fail out in their first year. So once they know you can survive first year, they're much more likely to accept you from somewhere else, and then you can go to whatever program you'd like to. That being said, just so you know, the reason why I value, since I'm also a house parent, I never actually mentioned this. I had 3 younger brothers that I tortured quite a lot, and that made me really suitable for a house parenting role, because now I have like 60 boys I can torture that live there every day, and then day students who show up once in a while, then I can torture them.
Why are you looking at me? I don't get tortured.
See you in the house later. Hold it. So, if you have your heart set on a particular university, just pick a college nearby if you can't get into it that will accept you, and then transfer in one that they accept the grades from. Sometimes there could be things between provinces, so you might have to be a bit careful, but talk to Mr. Rodriguez. There's always a way to get into what you want, into an area what you want. People change their minds all the time. I changed my mind, like, literally I counted up, I think it was 7 or 8 times about what I wanted to do. And I liked all of it. Like, I have a background in biomedical ethics, because I just got interested in it for a while. University is a time that you can do that kind of stuff. Now is the time you can do this stuff. However, your failure rate in university, because we measured it, is not 50%. You have a much, much better survival rate in university. And this is where I say to day students, stay overnight sometime and experience what it's like to be a boarder. Because when you go to university, that's what it's going to be like your first year in. Most people fail at a university not because they can't handle the material, but because they're living away from home for the first time, and that's hard. But if you've already done that, university's a lot easier. I do know of a Privet grad who was in university, and their dorm person, like the higher up student who like runs their floor, a bit like a house parent but not quite in university in res, was like expelled 2 weeks in. So in that 2 weeks onwards, they were resolving roommate disputes. They put up notices of quiet time so they could all do prep. They organized a kitchen rota to help keep the dishes clean. Like, they just did all the things they were used to here, and the dorm floor voted them to be the rep. They couldn't because you had to be a 3rd or 4th year student, but like they were already used to all the different things that happen when you live away from home. And so you do have a huge advantage in that way.
What is the statistic for like being kicked out of university for driving?
Oh, that I don't know. I don't think we've studied that. They were kicked out for drugs. So just don't do drugs, man. Keep the drugs away.
There's so many dealers.
What's the rate of
Other than coffee, do as much coffee as you want.
what's the
Yes,
rate of being
coffee.
expelled from Brentwood?
Pardon?
What's the rate of being expelled from Brentwood?
Well, there's an interesting statistics on that. First of all, if you could turn to this page, now that I'm done the long chat, there's something wrong with this diagram. In terms of the number of electrons, I'm going to arbitrarily say this one is lithium. We did once look at the number of people expelled or left the school during the school year. I'm going to say this one's fluorine. And we found out that if we include expelled and left the school, the rates between genders in terms of the houses are exactly the same. But if you were on this side of the campus with Hope, Mackenzie, Allard, and Alex, you're far more likely to leave the school for mental health reasons. And if you're on the other side of the campus, in Privet, Ellis, Whittle, and Rogers, you're far more likely to be expelled.
Makes sense.
And what we concluded for that is they're leaving the school for exactly the same reasons. Culturally, what we know about toxic versions of culture is that if you've been taught that when things go wrong to get angry, you'll do something stupid and probably get expelled. And if you don't know how to talk to people, you probably won't get the help you need, which is why we have a focus on mental health. And so they're probably leaving for the same reasons. It's just the boys do something stupid first and get expelled. And so we worry about that a little bit. So yeah, rates are actually technically the same.
So what is the rate?
Oh, I don't remember what the rate was though. Mr. Johnson likes to brag every single year. We have the highest retention rate of all boarding schools in
Who
Canada.
likes to buy?
Mr. Johnson, head of admissions. Far fewer students leave this school than any other school.
How many expulsions were there last
I
year?
don't know. I did once expel 8 students at a time.
Oh, he
You
brags
can
about
expel
that?
students?
Well, they were involved.
What was it for?
It was actually not 8 of mine. It was like 4 of mine and 4 from Alice.
Oh.
Let's just say, okay, I am very ill and feverish, so I'm getting off into a side tangent, but this is also, you never let this get in the way of your actual education. At the end of the year, when you're thinking something along the lines of, well, they can't expel all of us, can they? What does the answer have to be? Yes. So when a bunch of students decided, you know what, on the last night, if we all get drunk, they won't expel all of us.
Oh.
The answer is, what would happen if they didn't expel all of you?
They would get in trouble.
Well, no, if the school didn't expel you,
Then it happened again.
it would happen again, and it would be a tradition. It would happen every year, and we have endless problems. So people would much rather put up with a big problem once than a continuing problem every year. So the answer is yes, of course they can, because they would have to. There's not much choice. In fact, the ones who were in Privet, these were also grade 12s. So how can you get expelled from grade 12? Well, the school won't release your transcript to the university officially until you have done all the things you need to do. So if you get expelled on the last day, you have written all your exams, you've done everything you need to do, but the school will also assign them community work. So they missed walking up on stage the last day. They weren't allowed to attend the last day ceremony. And then they had to come back after everyone left and work for maintenance for a week. And then they released their transcripts. So that they did the same punishment they would have done in the middle of the year. Okay, how many electrons does lithium have? 3. How many valence? Look, periodic tables. How many valence electrons? 1. So it's 1 valence electron. It's giving it away as a ring, apparently, because we have to genderify everything. Genderify. How do we know? Like, these are atoms. They don't have genders. Why do we think? Why does that one look like a girl and this one look like a boy?
Eyelashes.
It's got the eyelashes. I don't know why they. If you look in the second Fallout game or something, they actually put breasts on a skeleton just so you know that that's a female skeleton, which I thought was really dumb. Like, why would you do that? But artists like to do that. So I'm going to give them both eyelashes because they're literally atoms.
Why is that one like?
Now, how many valence electrons
electron looks so
does
angry?
fluorine have?
7.
7. So if we're going to give fluorine 7 valence electrons, we're going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now this works for lithium if we say that those are inner atoms, but I don't want to give fluorine. How many inner atoms does fluorine have? 2. So we should give fluorine its inner atoms then. I'll put them right on their head. Yeah, and then because they all have little smiley faces, give them their smiley faces.
There's one that doesn't.
There. Then we have inner electrons. And what kind of bond is this? Not covalent. Because what's going to happen to that electron? Are they sharing that electron? No, it's giving it away. There's a ring involved. So the electron's going to go here. Fluorine will have 8. How many will be in the valence shell for lithium? 0. And we don't count the inner electrons when we go down. And so now they're stable. However, what charge will lithium then be? +1. And fluorine will be -1. So this is an ionic bond. What kind of atom is this? What do ionic bonds involve? Metals and nonmetals. So the next one, flip ahead to here, we have to label our metals and nonmetals. So let's say these are metals, and these are nonmetals. So let's label this, and we're going to color it in so that we have a reference. Our metals, it looks like I gave them the green, so it'll go like this. Come on. Sorry, I always think of that song when I see hydrogen. Because notice, I very carefully didn't make hydrogen green. What is hydrogen, metal or non-metal? It's not both.
It's something.
It's something. That's true.
It's too simple.
One of the problems is that it's too simple. Is it a metal or non-metal though? It's non-metal. It is not shiny. It doesn't conduct electricity. It's not a solid at room temperature. Mercury's a liquid though. Hydrogen's a gas. So technically, that is a non-metal that we place all the way over here. And we place it all the way over here because although it's a non-metal, it often likes to give up its electrons to become +1. But it also can gain one to become -1. It's a bit like carbon. It can go both ways. However, it is firmly, in all its other properties, a non-metal. So we don't consider it a semi-metal or anything. And, hold on. Let me make sure I get both these ones correct. Now, there's ones that are in between. Where did I put that list? That are known as the metalloids or the semi-metals. And the semi-metals, let's make them pink.
Aren't they also called
Metalloids or semi-metals. There we go. These are the metalloids or the semi-metals. And they have a bit of properties of both. So now that we've got the dividing line, we can fill the rest in. Our metals include aluminum, lead, bismuth, and tin. So we can put it all the way up to here. And our nonmetals are all the way up to there. So ionic bonding is between, oh, and I forgot a couple, is between nonmetals and metals. We always put the metal first and then the nonmetal, and they have a transfer of electrons, and so they actually get a charge. Just a reminder, for metals and nonmetals, which ones are the positive ions? Metals. And which one are the negative ions?
Non-metals.
Nonmetals.
What about metalloids?
So metalloids, well, again, we have a continuum. So although we could say, I mean, they did it genderfied because they wanted to show a binary system, but like boron, silicon, germanium as the semi-metals, they have twice the chance of a date on a Saturday night because they can go either way. They can have a positive charge or a negative charge. And so they can engage in ionic bonding. They can also engage in covalent bonding. Some of them can be positive, some of them can be negative, as depending on what they are. Arsenic often likes to act as a metal, and arsenic +3 is a thing you can get. But arsenide as a non-metal part of bonding can also happen. So it often depends on their partner.
Can they take part in metallic bonding?
In some cases, yes. So how much a metalloid displays the behavior of both is unique to that metalloid. So like silicon, we know we make computer chips out of it, has a lot of metallic behavior. But some of its usefulness is because it doesn't conduct as well as, say, aluminum. And so that allows us to do some fancy tricks in terms of its conduction on a small scale. So yeah, it has a lot of the properties of metals, and it can engage in metallic bonding, but it also doesn't do it as well. So, ionic bonding is the transfer of electrons. We have 30 seconds left. What are these two doing? They're sharing. A little sharing electron here. I like how these ones were like very gentrified, and these ones they kind of made this like there might be eyelashes there,
There is.
but they're much smaller.
Also someone who likes
There's also some on the other one, so maybe this is a different kind of couple. How many valence electrons, assuming these are both fluorine, should these have? 7. So we're going to add in to make sure there's 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we just need to add 1 to each one color. Also, I don't know if you've known this. I learned this, and I don't know what to do with the information, but it bothers me, so I'm now going to inform you. If you look at cartoons, educational ones, other ones, on average, the female ones will be presented with their eyes closed, and the male presenting one will have their eyes open. And I don't know why that is.
What?
I don't know why. Not every time, but on average, you'll notice that if you see like a quick cartoon. So it bothers me that is always the case, and I don't know why. And once I started noticing it, I saw it everywhere.
Maybe you should ask.
Who? It's just a cultural thing.
The patriarchy.
I've searched Google. I haven't searched Google since the advent of AI, though. Maybe I should ask, and it will make up a reason for me. Yeah. Smart.
It'll give you a
Ready, Liam Baker, for our map?
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'm back to... Remember, if you didn't finish the lab, tomorrow at lunch.
We know.
Unless I email otherwise, I have to check
We
in
know
with the
why
12.
the eyes are closed.
Pardon?
We know why the eyes are closed.
Why?
Because it's leftover symbol of submission from the patriarchy.
It seems like that is true. And I hate to admit this, but I actually read some papers on this. Like I did research. In cultures where that's not a symbol, it still occurs. In some cultures, open eyes are a sign of submission because it means you have to pay attention to what your superiors are saying. It still happens. And that bothers why? It could also be that is the reason, and those cultures have just been affected by other cultures. Yeah, because cartooning is a relatively modern invention. Hello. How's your time away?
Pretty good.
Excellent. You should not have AirPods in.
What?
AirPods.
I shouldn't?
Not in the building. Not walking around.
Sorry. And it's like loud out there and random ways.
Yeah, no, once you're in and sitting down and like you're gonna do some work at a table, you're allowed to pop them out. But in any building, Ms. Allen was like, we don't want students walking in, AirPods in, not paying attention to what's going on. It looks bad. But I think also they just want to show you that you should be ready to interact with people. And then when you sit down out there, you can do homework, you can put it in, or if you're in here with permission of your teacher. Dun, dun, dun.
Do this. This is actually so stupid. No way.
What? Oh, hold it, I'm still recording.
Wait, you played it. What did you do? Bro.
But Marcus, what's
I
going
thought
on?
you were referring to the craft.
Do you get a cup?
Here, wait.